You're laying up on the table, so it's
Yeah.
public relations. So that's different.
Yeah, that's different.
But you have to keep a good relationship with those reporters.
Yeah. And by the way, it's, in terms of like new media era, like what if you run into like people really, it's really easy to say nowadays post something officially on social media and people gets mad on you or like
Right.
turns to the turn the original message to another kind of joke or sort of thing. That what if that happened?
I think, well, there have been several high-profile situations. Domino's is the one that comes to mind. And the lesson from them is, number one, you have to have somebody dedicated to following your social media every day and answering the negative things that you can answer and deleting the negative things that are just hateful and out to cause you problems for no good reason. You know, there are some things that are negative, that are legitimate, that you probably should respond to and say, hey, good point, here's how we're fixing that. You know? But there are others where people just hate on things, and there's nothing you can do about that. So you have to be very vigilant. You have to be vigilant, you have to follow up, and you delete the stuff. You have control of the site, you delete it.
Yeah.
But you can't just let it pile up. Somebody has to be looking at that and editing that daily. The bigger you are, the more often.
Yeah, true. Because people are complaining about everything. People think about, like we are customer service in some way, especially like we're taking care of the social media, and people don't have direct access to the customer service, or just lack of the information. They don't making phone call. They just post things.
Yeah.
That happens on the like daily, every day. Yeah. So it's kind of a conflict with the crowd, with the public.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Because we didn't really have the direct like communication channel before we had a social media.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So that has changed how companies have to react to that. They have to be very active.
I see. Another question, just kind of besides that,
Yeah.
what are your family and friends asking you what you do as a public relations person? It's like people don't really understand.
Early on, my mother had no idea. She did not understand what I did. She was happy I got a job, but she still didn't understand what I did. And the easiest thing to do was to bring home a newsletter and a press release and a brochure that I'd written and say, Mom, I write the copy, I write the words, I write the headlines, I direct the photographer to take these pictures, and we put it together like this. And holding something in her hand, she went, oh, I understand, that's okay, you know. It's difficult when somebody doesn't have any understanding. So you have to explain sometimes in very tangible ways.
Yeah, because people are kind of, misunderstanding or like, or combining us as the like marketing guys and advertisement guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a real confusion and crossover between what's PR, what's marketing, what's promotions. You know.
Yeah.
And anymore with the internet, that line between those areas is blurring even more and more. The biggest thing I can tell you is that public relations people have to be able to write. They have to be able to write clearly and get a message across in very different mediums. Because writing a radio script is very different than writing a television script, is very different than writing a press release. And it's different than writing a post for social media. There are different needs for that. There's different types of words that you use. So you have to be a good writer.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, it's the hardest part though, yeah.
Well, especially when you're bilingual. Very difficult part.
Yeah, it's a very difficult part, yeah. The good thing is though, I can communicate well like interculturally because the way people in different culture they talk, they think differently. Even though we're using the same term, we probably are talking about different things.
Right.
That's what I learned a lot actually. With the people who helping me with, especially like who's English mother tongue speaker, like that we can communicate and we can make things work. But I have to work with somebody else to make things going. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. But I'm trying to learn like how to do it by my own, both in both languages or even a third language like Spanish that we have.
And part of it is, like I told you, one way of helping yourself is read newspaper articles out loud.
Yeah.
Because you learn what it's supposed to sound like. And eventually, as you learn that, you realize, oh, I forgot an adjective. Oh, I forgot an adverb. I forgot, and you learn as you practice it.
Yeah. What if the stuff you think is important to put on the news release, and your boss or your coworker thinks about how you can deal with that?
Part of that is to be able to understand why you're putting what your goal is, why the goal is what it is, who's the target audience. It's one of the reasons I push PR students to take consumer behavior as a class, because consumers as a group behave in certain ways. Women between the ages of 50 and 65 behave very differently than women between the ages of 25 and 35. And women between 25 and 35 react very differently than men between 25 and 35. So you really need to understand the end consumer and what their priorities are. So that may take some research. And at that point, then you're armed with information and data to talk effectively with marketing, with management, with whoever about what to promote and how to write about something. When I was doing truck bodies, there were two ways of making them, two different types of rivets. And I eventually figured out that those rivets defined how the body was built. And the buck rivet, which was bigger rivet, was for a bigger box that had to hold more weight and had be better structured. The pop rivet was for smaller boxes and didn't need that weight and strength. So it's about understanding the product, understanding the end consumer, and what they're looking for in a product.
I see. Yeah. So that way we have solid, data or improvements to talk with people around.
Right.
Yeah. But we still make our own decisions, by ourselves based on what we think is important.
You mean the consumer?
The
PR person has to have their work driven by the data.
Yeah.
You're not making decisions, oh, I've decided this truck body is great for 16-year-old girls.
Yeah.
No.
What if that happens to your boss? It's I think that's a good idea.
That's where you have to have the data. You have to have the research, you have to have the data to show where the product is going. We had a boss that did that at the truck body company, and he had seen a truck body in Europe that was a semi-trailer. And the sides rolled up. They were a plastic impregnated canvas, and the whole side of the truck rolled up. Well, that required a whole different structure on the truck because there was no metal on the sidewall to support the sidewall. So they had to have different beams in there. And he thought this was the greatest idea. Well, in Europe, they needed that because where the delivery trucks went was always down skinny alleys in old cities. And the cargo bay in the building was always on the side.
Oh.
Well, in America,
it's not
everything's big
yeah.
and everything's wide open, and they back in to the cargo base. We don't have the problem, even in cities like New York or LA or Chicago or Dallas, they don't have the space problem requiring a side open trailer. Now, there are companies that make them, and there are trucks on the road that have the side roll up, but it's a really specialized use application for that trailer. We built one model, we took it to trade shows, our salesman had it out there for 6 months, and it eventually ended up in the junkyard. Nobody wanted it. We built a prototype, we built actually two, and they ended up in the junkyard because nobody that we were building truck bodies for was interested in it at all. It was just his wild idea. He saw it in Europe, he thought this would be a wonderful thing to bring back here, but none of our dealers and none of our salespeople ever dealt with anybody that needed a product like that. You know, in that case, he spent thousands of dollars to make two of those, and nothing ever happened. I mean, I did a press release, I did pictures, I did all the stuff I was supposed to do. Sometimes in companies, you have to do that. I didn't have any data that said nobody would buy one. I didn't have anything. And the marketing guys sort of went, oh, the boss wants that. Let's see what we can do with it. Nobody knew. Nobody knew.
Yeah.
So it does happen.
Okay.
It does happen.
Got it. I think that's good for a good amount of stuff I can write about.
Cool.
Yeah. And really,
if you get into it and you have other questions, let me know.